Hi, good evening, viewers. Welcome back to another edition of Northeast Today live session. Today, we have someone really prominent with us who has been a human rights advocate and for the past 30 years, and she has done a lot for women and against trafficking and rehabilitating them. And also, she has played a very important role against the infamous rat hole mining in Meghalaya, against which a law was passed by the government in 2014 when it was banned. So, coming straight to the point, let me introduce you Hasina Kharbhih from Meghalaya. Hi, ma'am.
Hello, good evening, Northeast Today viewers, and thank you, Tenzing, for having me in your show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are so honored to have you here. And like it's been such an honor. And then I've been like since we've been reading and researching a lot on you, it's like my admiration and respect for you has increased many, many folds.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ma'am, as tradition, Northeast Today, what we do is we go ahead with the intro video first, and then we start with the question and answer. So, shall we go ahead?
Yeah, please do that.
Hasina Kharbhih is the founder and chairperson of Impulse NGO Network. She has spent over decades in this sector and is considered one of the leading figures in the fight against human trafficking in India as well as South and Southeast Asia. For 30 years now, she has been working to create sustainable life-enhancing opportunities and safe environment for women and children in the Northeast. This primarily involves putting an end to unsafe migration that leads to exploitation and is one of the key drivers of human trafficking from the region. She strongly believes one cannot end human trafficking of women and children until women at the grassroots are skillfully empowered and economically self-sufficient. Which is why her work stands on two pillars: Impulse NGO Network that raises awareness and fights the problem of human trafficking, and Impulse Social Enterprises that helps create sustainable livelihood and eliminate one of the key triggers for human trafficking. Partnerships for innovation in thought and action drive what they do and create a multiplier effect that makes their work globally scalable and sustainable. What started out as a mission in her home state of Meghalaya has today evolved into the Impulse model, which is a global program that's being studied and replicated worldwide. She believes social entrepreneurship must have a positive socio-economic impact where growth and progress are not measured by profit but by change in values, thought, and action exhibited. What started out as a small effort to help local Meghalaya artisans sell homemade products back in the 1980s has today evolved into Impulse Empower, an artisan brand and program for sustainable livelihood for over 3,000 women from 6 different tribes spread out across Northeast India. Over the years, Impulse NGO Network, Impulse Social Enterprises, and Hasina Kharbhih has won several awards and have been recognized for the positive socio-economic impact they have made on the local societies and indigenous people. To her, these accolades ratify that their model works, and more importantly, they reaffirm the value of their partnerships of all those that they work with, including the media, law enforcement agencies, financial institutions, philanthropic trusts, and other NGOs. Most importantly, the coverage they get helps not just to enhance the confidence and sentiment of the women they work with, but also help boost local small-scale entrepreneurship. At the end of the day, this is bottom-up upliftment of society and overall enhancement of the economy, which leads to creating a life of safety and dignity. which is what Hasina Kharbhih started out to achieve in the first place 30 years ago.
Wow, ma'am.
Thank you so
Hats
much.
off
Such a
to
wonderful
you.
video on violation. Thank you for that introduction.
I yeah, thank you, I mean, for honoring us with your presence here, and we are so honored. And like I said, there's so many things that you do, and we really, really look up to you. And people, our viewers, need to see like our guests like you who are making such a difference in their society. Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, I do. I do. I can hear you. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, ma'am, what is the day like in the life of Hasina Kharbhih? I mean, as a head of your organization, you must be having a really hectic schedule.
I think I should just start back with now at present. I think the 1.5 year now, COVID-19 had helped me to pause, to be at home and to reflect back on the work that we've been doing for the last 31 years. So I think the day to day activity has changed a lot, but it's still, working from home and reaching out from the house, which normally used to be like 10 to 15 days a month. I was traveling across the 8 states of the Northeast, neighboring countries, as well as many other parts of the world. But 1.5 year, I've been operating from the house, from a screen, but then still reaching out and trying our level best. I mean, myself and the team. I think I would not be here sitting and talking to everybody without a team who backs me up, who believes on the vision, who believes on the mission of the organization. I think a day to day life for me is, in the past, it has happened that I travel a lot, so traveling has made me, I love traveling, so I enjoy every bit of the work and working from different location, ensuring that all our state partners across the northeast of India, across different parts of India who's our networking partner, and other countries are actually face to face, working together through a collective leadership, envisioning a world that we could end slavery together. So that is one major focus. The other is like with a lot of meetings that I would be having in between, that we need to lobby to change the system, to agree upon a human right approach towards ending slavery. With the constitutional law that we have in our country, the respective countries that we work, and also because we work on the UN principle. So it's been hectic in terms of meeting people, engaging people, finding change maker within the system itself. The state partners who had believed on the vision coming together, has always been travel, work, meetings. But when I come back home, I enjoy cooking. Cooking for me is distressing. So any get together or meetings that I have is always that I prefer all our partners, my close friends, to be at home, because when I cook, I feel that I de-stressed and I pause. And it's basically my concentration is from all the hectic schedule that I carry with me 24/7. So I think that is always one part of me. And the other, I enjoy writing very much. So I write poetries. I think at one point of time, I thought I would be a poet and I would be a writer. But I think I took those hardcore interests of mine, my hobbies, as part of what I enjoyed the most from the kind of work I do, because I think the work I do is very hectic, it's very stressful. It's a lot of issues and crime that I'm dealing. So if I don't have another outlet, right, that I actually talk to myself, engage my mind, my wellness, then I will not be sitting 31 years, doing what I do and enjoying every bit of it.
Right, ma'am. I was also wondering, like, even I was going to ask you that how do you de-stress? And you've pretty much told that you cook. But I was just surprised because you have this long day and then you want to come back home and you want to cook, and that's amazing. Really high on energy, I'd say.
I think my high energy has a lot to do with my meditation, because I meditate a lot. I think I started long time ago when I was 26, and I think for me meditation, it's a way of life. And over the years, I've managed to do meditation at different spaces. I don't really need to have a special place to meditate, and that is one part of me that keeps me calm, that makes me able to detach from a situation of the work that I do, so that I come back with full energy. And cooking for me is like cooking for my loved one, cooking for my close friends and the people I work together who are family to the impulse model is always, I mean, it's always happiness. So I think that's the way I also de-stress, and I enjoy doing what I do. So that's what life is for me
Yeah,
every
ma'am,
day.
coming to meditation, like, do you follow any particular kind of meditation, or do you just like, focus on breathing and like doing it at home, like for a few minutes? Like, can you tell us a little about it?
Yeah, so I do Vipassana, and I learned Vipassana long time ago, and I try my level best to go for at least every year, but it's not possible to go every year. So at least alternate years, and once in 3 years and 4 years. So I basically do meditation through the Vipassana session that I have learned. And for me, Buddhism is a way of life, and that is something that I've followed very, very strongly over the years, and it has helped me to resonate what I do. And the meditation that I follow uh, brings that inner reflective and engaging myself of who I am, and why I do what I do. So I think that helps me a lot. I mean, in overall, but the kind of meditation I do is very inspired by the Vipassana and the Buddhism way of meditating. So that's what I do.
Ma'am, actually, even I do follow Vipassana meditation. So I had done it first in my college. Then after
Okay.
that, I did it after a break of 10 years. So
Okay.
the the organization, when I went there, I went to Kolkata, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're doing it after 10 years!" Like he was kind of making an example of it. Look at this girl, she's come after 10 years. So it was really funny.
But
Yeah, it
I
really,
think
really helps.
correct. I mean, I think because you do Vipassana, you can understand. I mean, Vipassana help you to detach. And the best part
Right,
of
right.
being away in a Vipassana is the kind of work I do. I mean, like 24/7, you are meeting people, you are engaging with people around you, from the cases that I deal, or the organization that I run, the engagement of different system that I have to work with. Every time it's like from phones to technologies. And over the years, I think technology has taken center stage in the way you work. So whenever I go for Vipassana, it's like when I detach from everything, and I shut myself from the world. And when I come back much more refreshing. And then that's also the time that it helps me to be more reflective. But practicing that every day, I think helps me to have this energy level that I have constantly, and to be in a space that I don't really get angry all the time.
Right.
I'm calm with
Hmm.
it. If I do get angry, it doesn't really last more than 10 minutes. So I'm quite fine, and I don't have grudges. I don't have any kind of grudges against anybody. If there's ever challenges that comes forward with me, I learn to detach, and learn to be more reflective. So I think Vipassana has taught me to be that person, more forgiving, high empathy, a person that I detach from, issues that I felt that I can be responsible for anger of somebody, or, somebody getting angry over a situation, but I have control on myself. So if I can put that control on myself, then I create more happier space. And by being happier, you do better things in life. So I think that is something that has helped me to be who I am today.
And it completely reflects on your face, ma'am. You look so beautiful and you glow. You're literally glowing through the screen right now.
I think that's a huge compliment. Thank you. Thank you, Devin.
Oh no, I meant every word of it, ma'am. And now that you mentioned it, so I kind of like I got the what do we say, the secret behind it. So we pass now, my friends. Meditation really, really does make a lot of difference, not just mentally also, but then emotionally also, and for your physical well-being also. Ma'am, you've also spoken and laid a lot of emphasis on mental peace and mental happiness. Can you elaborate a little for our viewers?
Uh, for me, I mean, my mental happiness is to be able to change life over the years. It can be one person or two person, and that adds on to the wellness that I feel I could be a part of. And that wellness brings a lot of energy when I felt that I myself, being in a very secured environment and always having the privilege that my family, could give me the best thing that one could need. I'm not saying, I mean, I would say exorbitantly luxury, but there are many much more people who cannot even have that. And there are many much more people that get exploited because of situation which is economically, the situation that leads people, either to migrate or people to move out or people to be in situation where they don't want to be. So that is one step at a time for me. Is always, it's a wellness for me that if I could bring that wellness to people who are right in front of me, and if I could play that part, then I've made a lot of difference. And so even like in 31 years now, every day it's something that, the little things that I do makes me happy. So it's not about, getting the whole world. I mean, you change the world through little things. And if you realize that these little things add on to the larger work that we do, then that is a wellness that you bring to yourself, that you've done something that is contributing to changing lives in the community that you are born, the community that you grew up, or the community that you work with. So that is how wellness is for me. The other part is never being angry with situation around you, even when there are challenges or difficult moments that I undergo, whether at an emotional level, personally, or a professional level. I think the work in 31 years has exposed me to different challenges. Those kind of challenges, in fact, has motivated me a lot in terms of going further and drive to make that change, because of the fact that I believe that the little change that I can contribute uh, through the organization that I represent can make the changes, especially on the vision that Impulse believe very strongly is how we should end slavery. So I think that's one part of it that it's part of me. It grew with me, and I endorse that every day. But when challenges comes to me, I don't really look that, that is going to stop me from doing what I'm doing. I always look at as, a solution is always out there. So I don't sleep, but without getting a solution. So I think that is one aspect. Some people might look at it as arrogant, but for me is that if there's a problem, there's a solution. So I think I look at from the positive side of it. So I think that is a kind of space and path that I grow up with, engage with, and the organization ethos stands on that. And that's what I keep telling my team, that there's nothing out there that is no solution, and if we just look a little bit deeper, we dive a little bit deep, we'll always find a solution. And if we ethically do that, then the growth is unstoppable. So I think that is how I myself, my team, the organization, the people who backs up the whole vision of the organization carries with them. We engage in that whole conversation all the time.
Absolutely, I agree with you, ma'am. I mean, there's a solution to everything, and then instead of like winning and whining over it all the time, if we focus a little deeper, like ma'am said, I mean, there's definitely a way out always. So a calm mind is the thing, I guess, for the solution. And ma'am, like working with the ladies, the human traffic victims, you have seen poverty really, really closely, and most of the time it's because of lack of job opportunities. They are pushed in that area. So, what is your message to those people, like who are bringing in development and employment in Northeast? So, what would your message would be to those people?
My message stand on the journey that I myself, has engaged through the Impulse NGO network, and the evolvement of the Impulse model which became the heart and soul of the organization. Now, when I started off, I was 17 out of high school, studying at St. Joseph's School in Shillong. The idea of getting into development was never there. It was basically wanting to do something in the society that I live, the community that I was engaged as an LTS, a leadership training service member of the school. And when I came out of my high school from St. Joseph, I decided that I would basically form an alumni. So I engaged our group of friends who were members of the LTS, and we were saying we should do something more and form this alumni. So under the mentorship of Thomas Lim, who is also now the editor of the Meghalaya Times, who was an LTS coordinator then at the school that I studied, he basically motivated we should have an alumni. But the alumni that we were trying to formulate give birth to the organization called Impulse NGO Network, where it was born out of that. And the fact that when we were trying to change life based on the experience of being volunteers of the leadership training services, we decided to actually adopt a small village in Sinteng in the East Khasi Hill district, which is very near to my grandmother's village, which is in Laitsoum. And the craft, the craft work is something very rich out there. But the market opportunity was never very resilient at that point of time. And having visited that village time and over again, when I go to the farmhouse in Balad, where my parents would take us during the winter vacation, I always see that there's a huge potentiality of that, that if there's a resilient market. So in brief, is that engagement to provide resilient market to that small group of artisans, evolved in understanding that economic development is a necessity to give women choices so that children are not sent to work and children doesn't have to go into hazardous situations. And that work grew. But in the period of the 89, when the ban on timber, by the Supreme Court of India on forest resources, actually also disrupted the what we call it bamboo and cane, which is also a part of the forest, but is an agriculture product. We had a challenge that we could not continue for a small period of time, which went to 1 to 2 years. So in that process, we were looking for a solution. And while we were looking for a solution, we started getting information of the migration that was taking place, where we saw the increased rise of child labor in the state, the increased rise of domestic help of children from the villages, the increased rise of people going out of the state to work, and the missing component that we were trying to unveil. And as we were trying to work, and trying to understand the ground situation of the migration that was taking place, the kind of labor issue that was taking place way then, myself and my college friend, Rosanna Lingdo, who's in fact part of the governing board and, been in this journey and continue to be in this journey, is looking for solution with our team at that point. And while we were looking for solution at that point of time, our organization was invited by Madhobendra Mandal, the founder of the ATSEC, Action Against Trafficking and Sexual Exploitation, in the South Asia, consultation in Kolkata. Now that step, that was way back in the 99. And that's the time when, way back 1999, when we started to work all of this. And when I was exposed to that in those years, in the 2000, I basically started learning how trafficking takes place, vulnerability happen, and how the situation that we were facing could be potentially children and girls being missing and they're being exploited. So when I came back with learning, knowledge, sharing it to my friends at the organization. It was a small group of friends at the organization. It was a small organization then, and we were trying to look for a solution. And the solution was that we should reach out to all the organizations. So I was reaching out with my team to all the 80 plus organization in India who was part of the South Asia consultation called Action Against Trafficking and Sexual Exploitation. And very simple, at that point of time, we didn't even have, internet was just coming up and you have to go to a cyber cafe to connect to people. So it's interestingly that I was sending
Right.
this email and 80 plus emails was going to across to everybody. And the simplest thing is, I hope you remember meeting me at this consultation and our organization name. And we're facing these kind of challenges. If you find any girls from our state or from anywhere from the northeast of India in any circumstances of exploitation, because there's a lot of rescue operation and others that was being done by a lot of other organizations then in other parts of India, especially the destination point, please get in touch with us. I mean, that was it. I mean, we didn't have a solution, but we were reaching out because we believe that we have to do something. And that email led to the first reply from Priti and Praveen Patkar Prerna, the founders and co-founders of Prerna, an organization in Mumbai, about two girls who was trafficked from the state of Meghalaya, who was rescued from Kamatipura. And then simultaneously, there was another girl from Tripura. These were the first cases that Impulse NGO Network, intervened. The intervention that we had to take it up with these three cases led to the steps that we documented on the legal framework of intervention and repatriating them back from the destination to the source, give birth to the Impulse model, and then the model grew over the years, and the 6Ps and the 6R evolved out of that. And it became the census stage of an innovation that the organization believed that we have to provide a single window platform. We have to have collective leadership to work together, and there should be no duplication of action. And the legal framework should stand as the core process of engaging both the public and the private partnership. So that is where we started working on the issue of human trafficking. It evolved on an action to cases that has been referred. The steps taken was documented, and over the years the case multiplied, numbers multiplied, and many cases grew from the northeast of India, from many states that the girls were being rescued. And that included young children, girls, young women, other gender, all of that. So that is when there was no more looking back. So the years progressed, the model grew, we learned and unlearned, we had challenges, we tried to find solution, and then the Impulse model became the innovation that became a single window platform adopted by a lot of partners in the northeast of India. And then 2012, I would say, when the innovation got the World Innovation Prize as a recognition that it could scale out. So as we were scaling deep, in our own state and our neighboring states of the northeast of India, including North Bengal, that prize helped us to scale out to other countries for replication. But we believe that Impulse should have partners, leaders from the respective state, respective country, who join hand in ending slavery. And while we were doing that, we were also scaling up. So scaling up in looking at laws and how laws should be innovatively applied. And they were also working towards laws that needs change. So we collectively work with other organizations in the country. So that's how the journey started on we working from a small village in Sinten, providing economic livelihood, the challenge that came right in front of us, and we were trying to find a solution for it. And the simple step, change the whole process of the way we work, and it gave birth to an innovation called the Impulse model.
Right, ma'am. One of my question was also related to the model of 6 Rs and 6 Ps, and you've explained it so beautifully. Thank you. And I don't, I'm not sure if the award that you were talking about was it the CNN IBN India Positive Award that you received in 2012.
No. So the award that I'm talking about, that Impulse NGO
Yeah.
Network received for the Impulse model, it's called the Global Development Network, GDN, under the Japanese Most Innovative Development Project that we got in 2012 in Budapest. And this is a selection of out of 5,000 world innovation, we were the winner. And being the winner of that prize help us to receive support from the Japanese most development project, which is part of the World Bank. And we were allowed to do anything with that money because it was a prize money. But we decided that we should use that money to scale out. And that is how Impulse scale out to Myanmar from 2012 till now, in taking this model, in diving deep with the model out there, and then engaging with partners, both system chain as well as the private and the public in replicating. And we also then scale out again to Nepal and Bangladesh. So that is how the model took us to the next level. The CNN IBN award was actually an award that I received for the work, in taking forward, in addressing the rat hole mining in Meghalaya. So that was the award I got from CNN IBN. It's a positive award of intervention that engages ending child labor and also looking at the impact of the environment. And that was a separate award. It's just not the same.
Okay, okay. Ma'am, like when the ban came, and then I had no idea that when I was reading about you and researching, and that I had no idea you had such a major role to play, and it's such a big honor for me, and I'm I feel blessed that I'm actually getting to talk to you and someone who's done a lot on this field. I really had no idea, so I just read about the ban very casually. Okay, like that's such a nice thing, but I had no idea that I'll someday be speaking to someone who's played such a major part on it. Ma'am, but the sad what I get to hear is now since COVID, the rat mining hole, though it's been banned, it has resumed. Is that true?
The fact is that from 2007, when Impulse, NGO Network under the Impulse model, intervened the situation of rat hole mining, it all started with a case that we received of a girl who had been rescued, and she happens to belong to Nepal. And this particular girl was actually rescued from the coal mine when we got an alert that there was a girl from across the border and she was trafficked to the coal mine. That particular case, the intervention of that particular case led to me and my team to understand the gravity of the rat hole mining. I was born and brought up in Shillong. I live in Meghalaya. Even if I've traveled so much with my work, never understood the gravity, knew that there was rat hole mining in the state, but never realized the gravity of the situation. So that particular case led us to get into the field, to understand the situation, and that field work that we took it up in 2007 led us to strategize an understanding of the rat hole mining, its operation, its situation of engaging young children, people who are like brought from across the border as labor. Some are trafficked. Some of them were brought, with families and mine managers. So that in when we started documenting. So from simple documentation to need assessment, impact assessment, led us to have a dialogue with the state about the gravity of children working, and also the fact that the environment is getting destroyed because of an unscientific mining. Now, when we took that up, I know we faced multiple challenges. We faced a lot of hindrance, in the process of it. There were a lot of institution, organization, people who didn't understand what we were trying to do. But the strategizing for us is impact assessment was important, mapping was important, using a methodology of filming. At least we film around 100 and 1,200 children as part of our research and in-depth assessment, and we multiplied many research in the course of years. And after applying all the steps towards getting a response, in terms of getting a scientific mining in the state and not engaging children, we did not get, I would say, a positive response, in the sense that we knocked every doors of department, of ministry, the National Human Rights Commission, NCPCR, name it, and we've completed. So the last resort for us is that with the evidence that we have managed, it was critically for us to go to the next higher level. And that's when the time we decided to file a public interest litigation at the National Green Tribunal. And that was in 2014. So you could understand the work from 2007 to 2014, engaging the system to understand the gravity of, violation of child labor rights, the environmental, destruction that was taking place. Overall, we were trying to understand what will be the legal framework. So taking into consideration the legal framework that it was children being used for, to actually destroy the environment, but their rights are also being, violated. We decided to use National Green Tribunal as a platform to file the public interest litigation and got others, to be engaged in this process, like Dima Hassau and other complaint that came from individual, into a group where we then decided to file a PIL and we got a closure. I mean, that was one of the positive outcome of the National Green Tribunal. But having said that, the journey did not end there. I mean, our office was ransacked. We were, in fact, asked to stop the work that we were doing. I was attacked at multiple times. My driver died in that episode of the highway accident that was actually took place during that period of time. And all of that bit, we continued to actually knock the doors of the National Green Tribunal with every steps. While one way there was, the outcome, the other way there were, mining that was happening, in silos. There were also like, what we call it, mining that was not happening in the open. And that continued to be there. And we continued to fight. Yes, COVID-19 last year, while the world is shutting down, migrant workers was moving out in different parts of India. While we were also addressing all this kind of situation, we also encountered that mining continued. It continued in smaller part, in isolation, and the whole power of money, the fact that, that was continuing even after a ban, it's completely, for me, it is like a violation of, I would say, an order of the National Green Tribunal. So coming up to said that, I would say that it's also destructive to the environment. Of course, everybody out there who have addressed those accidents, and including ourselves, that happened during COVID-19, prior to COVID-19, 3 years ago, even after the ban, we see that, the unscientific mining continued, and the state has not really come up with a proper, plan that has been directed by the state government, by the National Green Tribunal, that we need a policy that engage into a scientific mining. So the battle is on, it's continuing. It's not that we're keeping quiet about it. We're taking different steps towards the work that we are doing, even after getting an order that actually was one of the best order of a PIL ever filed.
True, ma'am. It's a little disappointing to hear, and that there's no concrete steps being taken. It's very disheartening, especially when it's something is related to child and environment, two really lethal combination, I'd say.
It
Ma'am,
is. It is.
what right? I hope something is really done about it. I'm speechless, ma'am. And even the Ella case, uh, the one you have helped rescue from flesh trade. So can you please elaborate on, like, because you have said that most of the time when you rescue these people from flesh trade, they tend to go back because of lack of source of income. So what is the rehab and resettlement policy that your NGO follows?
Ella Sangma is a survivor advocate of Impulse NGO Network. She became the face to inspire more survivors of human trafficking in the journey of fighting, back for their rights. And she became an instrument in actually helping us and myself to dive deep that economic livelihood opportunity is a necessity. And without it, we still keep people vulnerable, where they have to migrate because there's no, sustenance, or there's no employment opportunity. And she keeps talking about herself, because if she had the opportunity, she would have not been sent to Delhi and sold in GB Road. And, the rescue operation of Ella, and she coming back and being involved with our work, was an instrument for us to really look deep. And that's how Impulse Social Enterprises, the hybrid model, was born 13 years ago. It was born, in fact, to reconnect with what we originally started, from that village in Sinten. We were doing economic livelihood, bamboo and cane work, exporting bamboo and cane to different parts of the world before the challenge of the environmental ban that took place at that point of time. Although we continued our livelihood work, but the birth of Impulse Social Enterprise has a lot of deep dive introspection for me and my team, that it is a necessity that if we have to prevent unsafe migration that is leading to human trafficking, we need to actually engage into market resilience to vulnerable communities, especially communities who have traditional skill. And looking at that, we decided to work with different tribes in the northeast of India, through our state partners and our collaborative partners in each state, that we will take textile weaving, as a focus, because that is, a skill that is passed from a mother to a daughter in every indigenous family. And if we manage to give that resilience market, we're giving women choices with an opportunity not to migrate unsafely. And that would also hinder the push factor of, labor, children or young people engage into labor. So the birth of Impulse Social Enterprise also gave birth to a brand called Impulse Empower. And this is a brand, it's called an artisans brand that actually engage the artisans that we work. And we actually took around 7,000 artisans from the Impulse NGO Network, graduate them to Impulse Social Enterprise as the master trainers, and manage them to provide a resilient market and also preserve indigenous pattern. So the product that Impulse Empower offer, it's storytelling of the tribes that they belong to, the weave. So it's like the folklore is woven, the story of each tribe is woven. And that is one way of preventing unsafe migration from the lens of Ella Sangma, who in fact inspired us that if people have opportunity, they will not be trafficked. And it resonates the work that we all started. Although Impulse NGO Network deals with almost 30,000 weavers and craft people from across the Northeast, providing them channels of markets, but 7,000 are part of our Impulse Social Enterprise. This is a Impulse model prevention activity that took along in the process of the journey to end unsafe migration. Because if we prevent, then we will not have vulnerable girls to be rescued from the red light area or from any form of exploitation. It's a way of a response of our experiences, that all the cases we've been dealing over the years has one connecting point: employment, opportunities, livelihood. So that was one of the major factor of why we decided, to journey with a hybrid model from the learning lessons of the cases that we were dealing. But beside that, the girls who have been rescued, and we continue to rescue through our Impulse Case Management Center, a technology platform that also was born during 2012 as a solution of speed investigation, coordination between stakeholders, especially the anti-human trafficking units in every state of the Northeast, case documentation and data management. We decided that beside the rescue that we take, or beside the intervention that we are doing, we will have a prevention tool that stop people from being vulnerable. So it is side by side. But if a rescued girl today is brought back, we engage in a network of employment opportunity that varies from case to case, because some of the girls or the boys would go back to school. We would engage and work with institutions to provide them free education or sponsorship of education. There are cases that they need microfinance. There are cases that they need connection to employment. But the overall prevention is actually the livelihood work that we are doing with Impulse Social Enterprise. Last year during COVID-19, we in
Mhm.
fact co-create, impulse model prevention and rural futures co-creation as an end-to-end value chain in the fight against slavery that also connects to engaging fight against climate change, and bringing in agroforestry and an end-to-end value chain to the weaves that we were doing. So as we were growing,
Right.
we also evolved, and we evolved with solution that is the need of the hour. And that is how we work towards the rehabilitation and the long-term engagement of Impulse NGO Network in providing opportunities that help women to choose not to migrate unsafely.
Ma'am, we have this beautiful short video, and if you would allow me, I would like to show it to our viewers, and
Sure,
perhaps
sure.
once
I'll
it's
be happy
done,
to
we can
do that.
explain a little on it.
Sure, definitely.
At times, the dreams you see aren't yours alone. A thousand eyes weave them together. When their hopes, their smiles, become the reason for your existence, then it's essential to strive for their identity more than yours. Impulse Social Enterprises. Come, let's empower one and all, so that they too could raise their heads in pride.
So I
Ma'am,
think
is
that
that
beautiful
a part of
video.
your NGO?
Yes. Yeah, so that is Impulse Social Enterprises. And that is a video which actually talks about Impulse Empower, the brand that I was just sharing with you just a while ago, and how it was born and how it evolved. And that was a video that CNBC made it after, Impulse Social Enterprise won the Masterpreneur when I was competing at a national level as an innovation. So that's what speaks. And the fact that all the women who are part of Impulse Social Enterprise, they weave from their own home. So we don't bring them to a factory or a unit, but we allow them to choose their own time. So we call them entrepreneurs who are part of Impulse Social Enterprises. And we centralize raw material distribution, so that there's a quality control on the raw material. And each tribe weaves their own pattern where designer gets involved in retention of the pattern that actually tells the story of the tribe that they come from, and feeling proud of the pattern that they represent. But we also engage product designers to work with us at a different level, so that we have product line which is sold at our impulseempower.com, our e-commerce site. In fact, Amazon Saheli also sells a lot of our product, but we have a lot of ongoing corporate support in terms of buying our product, corporate gifts, and we work with different chain or market chain that we have. So that is a way of having resilience market. In fact, during COVID-19, when everybody was returning back home, and were losing their employment, our artisans in the different states of the northeast of India were continuing to weave. I know it was a lot of pressure on Impulse Social Enterprise because we have to push, the markets, when everything was on a shutdown mode, on a lockdown mode. But we came up into working in creation of masks, making masks, and then bring out a new product line so that we could manage to continue to run Impulse Empower and then engage in a different model altogether. And then that's how we also realized that an end-to-end value chain can only happen if raw material is also, being brought up to life. So sustainable fashion cannot happen with a yarn coming from across the border or a yarn coming from other state. It has to grow from the state that we're working with. And that is when Impulse Model Prevention and Rural Futures co-creation, when myself and Saurav Malhotra was, who was part of Rural Futures from Bali Para Foundation, started to engage in this end-to-end value chain, that the artisans and the family will be involved into the agroforestry and also be involved into creation of yarn, that actually then the yarn will be part of the process, and their opportunities and market will grow. Then their economic will also go upscale, and then they would have food security, because we saw COVID-19 that food security became the most important element of people when they lose their employment. And when people lose employment, then migration always is the second factor that will lead them to slavery or exploitation. So that is where the co-creation evolved during COVID-19, and our artisans were in fact reaching back to us and saying we need to get more people to be engaged into the impulse social enterprise so that they don't have to migrate unsafely again. So that's the work started growing, and it continued to grow. So with every challenges, like I said in the very beginning, there's always a solution. And if we look deep into problems and we are open hearted, that leadership is not single handed, it has to be collective in nature. And we in fact endorse that, as impulse model always endorse that, then we know we can make larger change, and that's how we continue to do what we do.
That's so beautifully said, ma'am. And apart from the those being sustainable, to keep it sustained, and if you're saying that the yarn and has to come from the state where it's being made and manufactured, it also helps cut down the cost. I mean, cost is a big one of the major problems in Northeast. I mean, a lot of people always complain that everything is so expensive, but the fact is that again, like everything is purchased from out, so invariably it totals up to a lot more. Ma'am,
Correct.
and oh, I can see a question coming up. Would you like to take a few questions from our
Sure,
audience?
I'll be happy. I'll be happy to address the questions.
Yes, technical team, that's
Thank
prompt.
you, Omi. Yeah, Omi is also a social entrepreneur and who also works so much with sustainable fashion. Thank you, Omi, for that much love and power. Thank you. And he's so much a person who believes in sustainable fashion, so he can resonate what I'm trying to say.
Hi, Omi. Hats off to you.
And we
That's
had
it.
Najib, and
Yeah.
then yeah, hello, and then good sharing. Thank you so much. I hope my sharing can motivate more people to come together. Hello, Benjia Nuka. Thank you for watching and look and watching this talk today, this live talk.
Thumbs up. So I don't know. What do we do? Give a thumbs up? Yeah, another.
That's from I think from Sikkim.
Yeah, Jambi. Jambi Wangchu. I think uh, that's. Ma'am, my another question. Oh, that's my brother. Hi, Eric. Thank you for watching. Uh, Somehow my brother he watches, and this friend of mine, Namge. I don't know. I cannot see her today. Hi, Namge. You're always watching the show. I don't see you today. Well, ma'am, I coming back to the questions. Since 2015, there's been a spike in the rate of human trafficking from the northeast, of girls of northeast, and from the northern part of West Bengal. So, since the time of COVID, has there been a slow? Has it slowed down, or what is the scenario right now, ma'am?
So when we talk about human trafficking, very often people
Mm-hmm.
feel that unless there's data, then only the problem
Mm-hmm.
is visible. But we also have to realize, at least from our experiences as an organization for the last 31 years, cases are never reported after a case is missing. And very often, when people register a missing case, if we go back to the Supreme Court guidelines, it gives us a directive that missing case can also be taken as trafficking cases if the case is not if the missing case is not found in 45 days. So we have to understand that sometime when we look at the NCRB data, we see a number of missing cases of every state. We see very less cases registered under Immoral Trafficking Prevention Act, because very often when somebody goes missing from the house, or move out of the house for employment or for greener pastures, we don't see them somebody reporting back that somebody is like not connecting back to the family and they haven't come back. often it is at the destination point when a rescue operation takes place that the case is registered. So we don't get the data, which comes back from the source point. So what we have tried to do from Impulse Case Management Center is trying to bring this data management in place that actually sees, an end to end of how trafficking takes place, and how these cases of trafficking needs to be dealt. Having said that, we have seen that some state doesn't have so much of case registered, but doesn't mean that the gravity of the problem is not there. And the case that we at the organization has dealt collectively intervene with many of our partners in Southeast Asia, we have plus to, 74,000 plus right now in terms of the cases. And these cases are reported to us at different part of the R, So when we have the 6 R's: report, rescue, rehabilitation, repatriation, reintegration, and restitution. So cases are referred to the Impulse Case Management Center at any of the 6, R's. And we intervene to engage a single platform in responding efficiently through a collective leadership, so that cases are being taken, in a much more stronger responses, and the no re-trafficking. But coming back to the trends of human trafficking, we need to really understand that trend has changed so much. We, as an organization ourselves, in the last 21 years, have seen that human trafficking, trends is not only about rural to urban. It's just not about child labor, but it has grown in many, many ways. And we are seeing that the online platform has also increases in terms of vulnerability of children and young women especially. And in the last 6-7 years, we find that cases through social media, cases that is being reported to us in many ways, happens to be online. Exploitation has happened online. And having said that, I also want to bring it in record that, social media was created with a business purpose. It has helped all of us to connect to friends and engage ourselves in communicating to the world. But at the end of the day, it also has its challenging side. And that is where we are trying to intervene in the last 3-4 years, because we saw that while COVID-19 had a lockdown mode and we thought that people will not get trafficked, but there are many cases of violation that took place. In fact, while people are migrating back, inbound migration was happening to the region. People are losing their job. We also find that many often and many times that it takes place, that people were visiting pornographic site and buying, vulnerability of young people online. So that is also the drastic mode of the changing trends. So that is something we need to understand, that human trafficking does not have one face. It's just not because you're below poverty line that you could be vulnerable. It is not that because if you're educated, you're not vulnerable. You could be sitting in your home, connecting to the world and connecting to the unknown. And the type of cases we have started to see, dating sites are also creating vulnerability, because we have many cases on that. People logging in, to spaces where they're trying to connect. There are many apps and many sites that are actually giving, platforms. But there's always the good and the bad of every technology that evolves out there, because it's a marketplace. Trafficker will continue to dive deep and start luring people in that spaces. And that's the kind of cases we are trying increasingly seeing. And that has increased even during COVID-19. I would also like to bring to light that the recent cases of drugs trafficking and human trafficking are also very much interrelated, because a lot of time young people who are actually duped into an addiction as drugs. It could be a party drugs, it could be drugs that they are just trying it out, but not every human being, when they get hooked to it, can come out of it very easily. We are seeing the connecting point to that the pimps today are not anymore like somebody who would go to a village who have such a horrible look and trying to tell people come and work. It's more people who are like you and me, trying to tell people, oh, would you like to come with me tonight? And would you like to be in this space? You might get an opportunity, you might get a modeling opportunity, but then you get hooked to that space. And that's how trafficking is taking place. So the entire space of human trafficking today has evolved to be more challenging, and as an organization, we are evolving to learn and unlearn situation of how to tackle modern day slavery, especially on the online platform, which is also diving deep to the dark net at the moment. So things like, when we say that there's lockdown, there's no human trafficking, we are actually not realizing that the online spaces is increasing vulnerability, and people who are hooked to different kind of challenges are also hooked to this vulnerability and are getting entangled. And that's where the thin line of what human trafficking is today.
That's a really, really important and good point you brought up, ma'am. And like you said, trafficking is not only a BPL problem, it can be an educated person can also fall prey to it, especially through online sites. So what would your message to such people and especially the youngsters be? How do they like how do they take care that they don't fall
So
into
I
such traps?
I think the generation today, when we call it, the millennials or the Gen X, their life, revolves around technology, which in fact, technology is something that's become part and parcel of our life. I come from a generation where there was no technology when I started off, and I have to evolve to get into a technology platform. That even today, I think my nephew is faster to learn technology than I do, to connecting to different things. But the flip side of it is that the crucial part of it, beside legal laws on online safety, that there's a necessity that we need to intervene. We work very closely with Facebook as well on online safety and trusted partners. But we also believe that it has to have a space where awareness is being created more and more on the flip side of vulnerability on Facebook and other social media site, on other dating apps, that one has to be very cautious, not to connect to the unknown, not to be vulnerable, to be, finding yourself in a space where you feel this is the ultimate offer that I get, checking those credentials, or reach out to organization like us, where if you feel that you're not sure of those sites, and understanding how the sites are operating, we are trying to work towards getting that kind of awareness level, so that we are able to help people to become less vulnerable. So that is an important element, one message. The other is that sharing anything on the social media space, you need to evaluate what you're sharing, how you're sharing, and what you speak to the media spaces. Sometimes as human being, a lot of young people brings out their anger, their frustration, the vulnerability side, the self-esteem side. You are actually displaying a very vulnerable part of you. And the traffickers who are
Right.
today more educated, they're hiring like the best psychologists, the marketing people behind it. They're using artificial intelligence to study your vulnerability, right? And reaching out. Like we had cases like the Mama Counselor, which actually young girls being gets connected to people who get in touch with them through messenger, and not realizing that the person could be anybody out there, but the person seems to know everything about you because they use AI to understand and follows you, right? So my message is to be wary of situation of being connected to the unknown, understanding that what you're posting out there, you're being actually being watched by traffickers who would be there to lure people under vulnerability. So using social media space and all these apps, you need to also be cautious. You need to be educating yourself, and it's important that you educate yourself before you reach out. And if you are in trouble, you should not hesitate to file a complaint on that. And we encourage a lot of young people to file a complaint, because sometimes a lot of young people get dupe, gets blackmail, after they are caught in a situation, then they don't know what to do. So that's very important. I mean, when it comes to being at the home, connecting to the world, And you could just be somebody that could just trap into that situation, not realizing that you're getting trapped.
Yes, that's wonderfully said, and I think back check, cross check, and like being getting thorough. I mean, information is one of the first steps you need to, and then yes, there are other. If you find if you're not sure, like she said, you can reach out to her Impulse NGO and the others also. Like there are many efforts being put in by governments also. There are many steps, but first thing is you need to back check and not like and you become vulnerable to your emotions also. You need to keep a check on it. Some people are going to use that against you. That's very important point, man. So once I also wanted to know that once a person is rescued, so what are the main challenges of rehabilitating them?
So the way impulse model work is that when a rescue operation is being conducted, normally by the law enforcement, especially now we have the anti-human trafficking unit in every state of the northeast of India, in every state in India, it's mandatory, which is a guidelines by the MHA, the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, taking that, there's always a support of a non-profit organization, an NGO that assist in terms of the rescue operation. Mandatory after a rescue operation, a girl, a child, anybody is taken to a shelter home. Shelter homes are often run either by the state government or they are run by NGO notified by the state government. In context to if they are below 18, then they falls under the Juvenile Justice Act, a Child Welfare Committee, they'll be produced. If they're above 18, then they would go to a Swadhar home, Ujala home that is being run either by NGO or by the state collaboratively and notified. And when they are there, all the legal process and counseling takes place. So what we do is we facilitate that network through our state partners end to end, which would mean from destination, to the source point, facilitate repatriation. Now, rehabilitation short term is often done in a shelter home, but at the end of the day, they cannot be living in a shelter home for life. Uh, you know, Reintegration becomes a necessity. So we, as Impulse NGO Network and our partners across, focus very much on reintegration, where they go back to the community, but the confidentiality is maintained. So that's why if you look at our website, you don't find cases out there, or we don't put out confidentiality of everybody unless until somebody is above 18 and want to speak out and want to become a survivor advocate like Ella. That's a different story altogether that motivate. And we have many other survivors that motivate, like we have Sharon Rai from the coal mine who's doing his graduation. He was rescued from the rat hole mining, and around 12 to 13 of these children are today doing having better education. They're being supported by us in Nepal, and some of them has gone back to other states in India. So we've had, and of course we've worked collectively with other organizations to give them a new life. So children like them who become adult and become advocate, that's very, very different, that they come up and talk to the entire world. But we keep confidentiality during the rehabilitation, during the reintegration. So our focus of reintegration is connecting to employment, which I mentioned to you earlier, through our network of networking partner who provide services from education to vocational training, a job engagement. But beside that, we look and monitor them, always more than 2 years. In fact, actually our end thing is 2 years, but we monitor them to see that they don't get re-trafficked. And our state partners, we have wonderful state partners out there who are championed the Impulse model, like Pishak Singh in Manipur, Hamso in Nagaland. We have Sunil Mao in Arunachal, and Tashi, in Sikkim. And of course, we have, Pratima Joshi in North Bengal, Jayanta, and many more who are part of our process. Without them, the whole rehabilitation, the reintegration. We have Miguel Kuya in Assam, Nandini Chaudhary, So we work very much under the 6R with the collaborative engagement and many more of our partner, but I'm not be able to mention all of them. We have more than hundreds of them in Southeast Asia that we work. But rehabilitation is short term in a shelter home. long term is reintegration, and we focus on reintegration. I mean, some of the cases we had that we've worked so closely with Prajwala Sunita Krishnan, in which she had even, because they don't have any more family members and they don't have anywhere to go, she has kept them in her shelter home. They might be from the northeast, but they're staying in Hyderabad, at her shelter home. So we work very much that way, and that's why we say that single window platform is collective in nature.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, we wanted to know that you've been working so tirelessly, and it sounds also good. But then, do you face any threats as such? And like, it must be really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, the threats, I think, when I entered the space, and when the organization decided to work towards ending slavery, I think at that point I never thought that I'll encounter a lot of challenges that are threat to life. But in the course of time, as we were engaging to work, with difficult cases, especially the rat hole mining, uh, got the whole organization at a vulnerable situation of ransack. It got, our car was, I mean, I would say attacked. I myself was personally attacked in one of the accidents that happens to be, basically, I would say it was I don't know, stage accident or what do you call, because that inquiry never could get over till today, is that the truck hit my car, and where there was no traffic at all at that point of time. My driver died on the spot when I was traveling, to Guwahati. In fact, I was trying to go to the airport, and the truck was coming from the other side. It's a coal mine truck. I was in a tourist taxi, and that hit and run situation. I escaped, but then the driver died. We've had
Hmm.
similar attack, in other cases. If you talk about threat, many multiple threats in terms of telephone call, in terms of letters. We filed so many FIR in those situations at one point of time. But I think we got a lot of international community to stand up with us, to stand up with the work that we do. And I think my personal safety when the UN Special Rapporteur came to take, support and took me out of the state and actually helped me to be who I am today, and Asian Human Rights Commission took the action, to basically speak to the world about the kind of situation that we were going through at that point of time. So challenges has been part of the work that we do, but in the course of the years, we have also matured of how to deal with these challenges. We have engaged multiple, institutions across the world to actually stand back in terms of supporting human right defender like me and my team and all our partners who will continue to also face challenges in the course of time as you take difficult decisions in basically if you are attacking an economic of a powerful person, you're always asking for trouble. But then when you're dealing with crime as human trafficking or crime that is actually destructive to the environment, you're always asking for trouble. So I think that is where we learned from the situation that I personally faced, the organization as a whole faced. But I think overcoming that is becoming more matured in the way we handle and creating a wider international platform in looking for support as human rights defenders.
Right. Ma'am, and I read somewhere that you also provide fellowship to journalists and also you work in collaboration with the police force to provide the journalists and the police sensitivity training in reporting about especially human trafficking survivors. Can you elaborate a little on it?
Yeah. So, like I just said, the impulse model, under the 6 P's: partnership, prevention, protection, policing, press, and prosecution. The press P was a P that uh, engaged us to actually train a lot of journalists when we initially evolved as a model. The understanding that the role of journalists and in depth reporting was a necessity, and especially bringing sensitivity in the way one reports about cases of human trafficking and sexual exploitation. We graduated in having media partners across the northeast of India. And in the course of the learning that the need for in-depth reporting on human trafficking that could change the way human trafficking is understood, and the way human trafficking is actually creating policy change through media intervention happened very much with our coal mines, our work in the rat hole mining, where we engage a lot of media to go into in-depth reporting on the statistics and information and research, and to go ground zero to report about it. That led us to the evolvement of the Impulse Model Press Lab, which actually allows, offers a 1 year fellowship for mid-level journalists, senior journalists, 4 weeks fellowship that was launched in 2018. I credit this, to the journalist team who have, who believe in this journey. And Karma Palzor, who is with East Mojo, and he is the team leader of the Impulse Model Press Lab. The core committee in India, like Kunal Mazumdar, Bidayak Das, who happens to be a core committee for the India. And we have like Kapil Kaple from Nepal. We have Sinwin Zayar from Myanmar. We have an advisory board. So this is a fellowship that came up from a learning lessons, from a successful way of working with the media, for, in fact, the step one that we happen of all the journalists who have been backing us up to talk about this issue in a very sensitive manner in the initial years that led to all the training. We have Amit Patro from Sikkim, Express, who is also part of the core committee in India, that led us that a fellowship will help journalists to dive deep in reporting about human trafficking. So we are so proud of all our fellows, the first batch of fellows who came up, to be selected through a process of application and, shortlisting and interviews and being trained by professionals, advisory and professional in Myanmar. And then they came up. In fact, Pari Saikya, one of our fellow from India, has done so extremely well, and extremely well in the sense that she was recognized for her reporting, that took up cases of trafficking, from, basically starting from Kashmir, going into Bangladesh and into Myanmar. So this whole story that came up as a very successful story. Of course, we have Chandan from Nepal, and we have the others, who are part of this fellowship. So this fellowship was envisioned and under the leadership of Karma Palzor and our core committee in all the respective countries as a way to respond to in-depth reporting, engaging that it should not just be one news that talks about human trafficking. That has to go deeper so that you change the whole mindset of how human trafficking takes place. You bring, a more dialogue. You engage in more responsive way of sensitivity, and you allow, policy engagement, through these reports that are much more powerful, but they have to be, so we provide that kind of fellowship. The other part of how we brought partnership across, like I just said, we bring private and public partnership under the 6 Ps, and the
Yes.
6 Rs is the action on the ground that use the Impulse Case Management Center. It's a collective effort of private and public, and the media is a strong partner of the work that we do. And we are proud to say that this partnership has led us to bring larger dialogue, larger intervention, allow us to curate stronger stories, in terms of real life case studies, keeping confidentiality of the people who are survivors of human trafficking. So that is where the press component has evolved. As far as the law enforcement and the policing, we have worked very strongly with Northeast Police Academy, where we designed a training curriculum when we started off, and had this training curriculum in all the police training schools in the Northeast, and it multiplied. We have, in fact, trained more than 30,000 of law enforcement across the 8 states and also the countries that we work with. But having said that, we realized, like I just said when I was just talking to you a while ago, that the trends of human trafficking is changing. So our module in training law enforcement is also evolving, because now we have to come up with better tools and better processes of the kind of trends like online exploitation, cybercrime. So that is where we are at this moment, evolving with new methodology to train. And Impulse and all the state partners are also resource assistant in their respective states to most of the police trainings that takes place on human trafficking. So over the years, we become more of a technical support as well.
Ma'am, you've also been working with the government pause in the other countries, neighboring countries like Myanmar and Bangladesh. So, is it how supportive are they in, and how does it work out there? Is it any different from the Indian government?
Well, I think every country has its bureaucracy that functions, but like every country has change makers within the system. And having said that, I think we had wonderful change maker, experienced change makers within the system who believe on a vision of ending slavery, and we journeyed with them, and we brought changes. In fact, India Myanmar standard operating procedures that was signed, in 2019, is an outcome of advisors of Impulse, model in both the countries. Like we have Mr. Krishan Verma in India, we had Raling Mo in Myanmar, and we had Dr. Govind Thapa in Nepal, who works, with their experiences brought on board. That if a country has ratified the UN protocol, then it's important to bring standard operating procedures that engage on repatriation, which is much more from a human right approach. So I would say change makers within the system makes a lot of difference, and there are always, whether you don't have to be in a nonprofit organization to make changes, you can be in your space and collaborate. And it's like one step forward in engaging that we don't want people in the 21st century being enslaved, at any level. And coming back with Bangladesh, in fact, our team has worked really hard. Our country partner has worked really, really hard in engaging. I mean, I would say I credit it, like, if to my team, like Bari Palalitan, Hasina Kharbhih, Rosanna Lingdo, the whole team, and our partners across as well. BRAC is our partner in Bangladesh. With Thomson Reuters, I would say pro bono lawyers, the working mechanism that Amarin was really working with Bangladesh pre-COVID, and it's moving to a different level right now, is working rules for standard operating procedure so that it makes the work on the ground much more efficient, and that is when border security forces are engaged, they also understand that we have laws, we have policy, but how do we make those policy workable on the ground? And that is also the other factor of what Impulse does to engage this country. But I've had a wonderful experience in all these three countries, and Myanmar has become like my second home, in many, many ways, because when I entered Myanmar to replicate Impulse model, it was still during militarization, and we worked through that, and we worked through democracy. And of course, Myanmar today is in a difficult situation, but we still are closely, working tirelessly, because with the situation that we have now, we also see migration happening across the border. And the more people are
Right.
moving out, they become vulnerable. And our partners are working towards solution at the moment. And the standard operating procedure is allowing us, we were happy that the cabinet, the government of India passed that SOP. It's like a landmark for Impulse, to get two countries signing an agreement, to have, working rules with these countries. And I credit that. I think I credit because there are people within the system, who participated very, very strongly, and I credit, I think, my boards as well, who are experienced people, who guide us at every level. But I think every country has its own ups and downs. And you just have to have resilience. I think if you don't have the patience and resilience, working with the system and lobbying with the system can drain you out. I mean, it can really drain you out. But I think when you have resilience, then you basically look at the positive side of it, the larger change, right? I mean, how other organization who comes in the process have the benefits of the systems that are making the work on the ground much more sustainable.
Right. I mean, if you're saying that you worked at Myanmar during that phase, I think nobody can question you or Impulse credentials. So, and like you said, there'll always be naysayers and there'll be supporters within and outside the system. It's how you channelize, and like you said, there's always a solution. you need to get hold of the right people and people who you can connect with and work together. But so beautifully said, ma'am. And coming to the end of the program, I have one final question for you. That you've made it so far, and you've done so beautifully, and your Impulse NGO too. So, what would like what would your message be to our viewers and people who are working like you, like around not just Northeast but whole of India?
Well, my message is that when you have a passion, go all for it. And you have to take the challenges and build resilience, especially on social issues. If you really want to work on social issues, there's no ready-made solution, and if innovation is already existing, then don't duplicate action. Work together collectively, and don't let your ego takes away the larger change that you can bring. So a collective leadership of scaling deep, scaling up, and scaling out becomes a necessity. So that is my message to everybody. And young people out there, I think when we talk about slavery and when we're talking about the issue of unsafe migration, check the credentials of who's offering you which opportunities, who's connecting you at which platform, and making sure that you don't become vulnerable to a situation, an offer which looks more greener than the space that you live in. So it's very, very critical.
Thank you, ma'am. Like most of the time, what I feel is that people who really need to hear and like listen to our conversations will always be the people who miss it out. So, our viewers, what I'd like to say is that people around you, your neighbors, your friends, if you feel like they are going somewhere and you can guide them, if you're aware, please do share in your inputs and guide them. I mean, that's the least and the most you can do. Also, it will be a valuable contribution from your end. So, ma'am, it was such an honor having you. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today, and we are so honored to have you here with us. Hope we will reconnect soon again. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, the Northeast today, and for having me on the show, and all the viewers and those who will be watching this, into your space, wherever you're going to share. Do connect to Impulse NGO Network, and
Right.
our case manager, Bari Palalatan, who is, the heart of the Impulse Case Management Center, will definitely respond. If you just send us messenger message in our Facebook page, if any cases you come across, we'll be happy to reach back. At least send the name, send the contact numbers. And that's the easiest way in today's COVID situation. You can just send a message, and that message will be responded. And out there, to everybody, let's make this world, a world where there's no slavery. Because sometimes we should just ask the question: the clothes that we wear, was it purchased from where? Where there's a child labor engaged in it? If yes, let's restrain ourselves from purchasing it. I think that's another way of ending slavery.
Totally, totally agree. I hope your listening viewers always do a little bit of back check and a bit of research, whatever you're buying or whatever you can. If you see anyone is engaging child labor and all, you can always report. There are a lot of things. There are many, many. You don't have to always, if you cannot be a social worker or social activist, you can at least be like a very alert citizen, and you can always make your own bit of contribution. Thank you, viewers, for joining us. We'll be back again really soon. And thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
I dream to dance with the tide. I am fulfilling someday. Let this be the epilogue to my life. When somebody accepts a job somewhere or accepts some opportunity, it's not that they really want to be enslaved or caught into a sexual exploitation. She wanted better money. Yes, everybody wants better option in life, better opportunity in life, but nobody wants to be sold. My name is Hasina Kharbhih. I'm 47 years old. I am from Meghalaya, and born and brought up in Shillong. I would call myself a human rights defender. Impulse NGO Network evolved over the last 26 years, a collective response to engage both the private and the public to come together to intervene to address human trafficking. There's so many unreported cases. There would be more than 80 to 90,000 of cases from across the 8 states of the northeast of India that we've been working. And that is amazingly really, really high in terms of the people coming from this region. As an individual, I took the first step, the bold step to say, any girls that you find from the northeast, please let us know. And that step led from 2 cases to 3 to 4. And in the course of 30 years now, we have more than 74,000 cases that the organization has dealt. When we started to work on the issue, I would say that women from the region, because of lack of economic opportunities, were moving out of the region for job opportunities. Today, the social media and the internet is far reach to every villages that people are looking as the best option, and how beautiful it would be to get out of the region. We have seen that girls from the northeast are no longer going to different states in India like Mumbai or Calcutta or Bangalore. They're going Southeast Asia. Now, our states in the region, we are bordering China, we are bordering Myanmar, we're bordering Bangladesh in large way. We have the chicken neck, which is also connecting to Nepal. Most of the connectivity is by road, by bus. And the second connectivity that takes people from the different part of the northeast now is Guwahati is a train station that leads people to get out of the different parts of the northeast. Many family does not really understand that going out of the region can actually make the young girl or the young women unsafe, because they have not really understood the gravity that at the destination point, getting a job is just not getting a job. It's who's giving that job, and what is the facilities in that job, and what is the safety in that job. That is, the gap of understanding. Family allow because they didn't realize that that would, let them to be vulnerable. There has to be economic opportunities in the spaces that women and girls come from, whether we are talking about a rural context or we are talking about an urban context, because that is an option where economic viability make them have more strength not to accept opportunities outside which will make them vulnerable. The secret of my success is identifying change makers in the respective communities that we work, whether it's states in the northeast, the neighboring countries, championing their leadership to accept that we can collectively come together to address the issue of human trafficking.